So I have a couple of questions for you, Taoiseach. First of all, Taoiseach, do you agree that whatever about the merits of the dispute, it's not right that some of the most vulnerable people in our society should be made a target and should be used in a dispute like this in a way in which their needs and rights are being so seriously put at risk? Secondly, do you agree that the necessity to return to the dispensing of methadone in the community pharmacies is urgent, and what can be done to restore that as quickly as possible? And thirdly, can you explain to us how the dispute between the pharmacists and the HSE, which has been rumbling away for so long, has been allowed to come to this pass and this point? And what will be done to put discussions in place between the HSE and the pharmaceutical union in order to settle the issues which are outstanding, both in relation to the methadone dispensation and also in relation to the payment for the drug scheme, which is of concern to the pharmacists themselves? Well, we are where we are on this because, I mean, the Taoiseach talks about negotiations and the talks that have been set up under Bill Shipsey, and, you know, we all hope that they succeed. But this problem is because there couldn't be negotiations in the normal sense of that term, because apparently the decision was taken that the IPU couldn't be negotiated with because of the provisions of the Competition Act. Now, frankly, I think when the Competition Bill was going through this House in 2002, I don't think that any member of this House anticipated that it was going to be interpreted in a way that would prevent the kind of negotiations that are required now and have been required for some time between the HSE and the IPU. In any event, I don't understand why this has only arisen in the case of the pharmacists. Because as I see it over the course of the past year, the Bar Council and the Law Society have negotiated with the state over the levels of legal fees for both the Criminal Legal Aid Board and the Civil Legal Aid system, and in fact I think resulted in double-digit increases in some cases. There have been negotiations between the HSE and the IMO in respect of general practitioners who are practising on their own. There have been negotiations between the HSE and the Dental Association in respect of dentists who are functioning on their own. There have been negotiations between the Department of Agriculture and vets over the various schemes for animal testing. So how is it that the Competition Act, which doesn't seem to have any problem in preventing negotiations between, if you like, the sole traders in other professions, has suddenly arisen in respect of the pharmacists alone? So, you know, I would like to ask Taoiseach, I mean, the legal advice here, it seems to me interesting. Whose legal advice is this? Is this the HSE's legal advice, or has the Attorney-General expressed an opinion on it? And if the Competition Act is that rigid, that it is preventing the kind of sensible negotiations that needs to take place between the HSE and the IPU, then the Competition Act, you should come in here with an amendment to the Competition Act that would allow those type of negotiations to take place. I mean, if any state agency comes to any group of professionals or any businesses and says, we're going to cut your fees, we're going to cut your margins, we're going to cut them in half, no matter what the merits of that might be, they'll at least want to talk about it and discuss the implications of it. And the difficulty we now have, and the reason that we have recovering heroin addicts who can't get their methadone, and I appreciate all of the distinctions people are saying, well, it's not connected. Of course it's connected with it. That's the reason that they're not having it, and the reason that we have pharmacies now talking about closing down and so on is that because for the last year the pharmacists have been flagging that this has been a problem, and they haven't even been able to get formally to the table to negotiate about it. Now that needs to be resolved. So Taoiseach, I would ask you to, you know, by all means let the Bill Shipsey discussions go ahead, but there needs to be a method found, if necessary, by changing the legislation, changing the Competition Act to allow the pharmaceutical union to be able to represent pharmacists in the normal way that business associations or professional bodies represent their members in their dealings with the state.
Taoiseach.